engineer is an applied art that whereby aesthetics and usability of products may be improved. The design aspects specified by the industrial designer can include things like the shape of the objects, the location of where the buttons are, the ergonomics, the human factors, the sounds, the texture, lots of aspects that go into doing the industrial design engineering. The circuit and electrical engineers are also already mentioned. And then this is typical now. Why do we have so many teams? And we've got usually 15 new products every year. So at the beginning of the year, a bunch of us old folks sit around and say, oh, let's dream up 30 new products that we should make. And it's typical, it's a small group, it's myself and 3 other people. And we say, okay, here's what we would like to do at Razor. This year we want to do a Razor phone. Okay, so that's one of the 30 products. So usually, and that means we have, and then we narrow that down to 15 products because 30 is just too many to introduce in 1 year. And when you think about 15 products that we have left, each of those costs about between $2 to $5 million US dollars to make. So now we have 15 new products and 15 design teams in 15 offices. So we'll have one design team in every one of our 15 offices to work on our new products. So performance and design are really important. So our engineers design all the internal and most of the, or many, about half of the internal components. And so we want the users to have the ability to go anywhere and play our music or play our games or use any of our hardware, and delivering the processing power, the human, functional designs, and all the smart interfaces that we possibly can. So we'll ask our design engineers to actually study human factors. So what we do is we eliminate the process of having to choose between performance and comfort and portability by using smart and usable design solutions. This is a good example. This was this one Best of Show at Consumer Electronics Show, I think it was 3 years ago, was our first triple display laptop where those extra displays actually pull out of our laptop. So this is an example of our engineering. This is another example of some of the unique engineering we've done. This is a modular PC where you don't actually buy it, you rent the components, and every time there's a new video card or sound card, it just snaps in. So everything snaps in, it's all modular. Now those 2 products are not actually in process yet, but it gives you an example of some of the things we like to work on. So not everything makes it to the marketplace, but we're still always trying to innovate. That's the modular. I'm sorry, got behind on my slide. Okay, so today, 15 offices, 3,000 employees worldwide, 1,300 of them support those teams of creatives that I mentioned. We actually also have 33 engineering interns around those offices. Razor will approach $1.5 billion US dollars in annual sales. We are now a public company. We're valued at almost $6 billion as a company. And so I just wanted to mention a really important piece of software that our design engineers use in these conceptual meetings. It's called polygon modeling. How many of you here are familiar with polygon modeling? Anybody? A few? Okay, well, what it's used as conceptual. It's like a quick render. Instead of making a 3-dimensional, like a solid type of model program, this is for really, for people to do quick ideation and do rendering. And so Maya Max is the program, and I encourage every design engineer here to learn more about polygon modeling, because it's so important for companies like Razer that do a lot of quick ideation. So other design programs that we use typical freeform surface modeling from Rhino and Autodesk, Alias, and so these allow our designers to create extremely accurate forms, but they're the second thing that we do after the ideation. After the quick form modeling, then we move into more solid first. So that's the Rhino product. Okay, now this is solid modeling, which I think a lot of engineers are more comfortable with, like AutoCAD, parametric design, and these focus on the creation of solid models and open surfaces. And so you can actually see the model on the right was actually built off a 3D printer direct from the AutoCAD parametric design. So, and then we painted it. And then what we did was we sent about 50 of those out to all the teams that we sponsor, professional teams. And we asked for feedback. So it was almost like doing a little piece of focus group research. And we said, how does that feel in your hand? Even though it's not a really working mouse, it gives them some great ideas to what they're going to do. Okay, so then the next thing we do is study our own and other industries' product evolutions through what we call design progressions. And this is, now you can visualize this team of 5 to 10 people sitting down and saying, okay, what did Porsche do in 1973 and what do they do in 1980? I'm sorry, in 2018. What was their design progression? And then we look at our first mouse, the Razer Boomslang, in 1998. And then we look at our mouse that we designed in 2018. And we say, okay, this is how we progressed. This is why we did what we did. This is why Porsche did what we did. And we study a lot of other people. We don't study just automobile, we study all industries. So these are design progressions that we use as a team. So typically we'll borrow inspiration from other exceptional non-entertainment product categories. So we study ambient lighting. We study intelligent controls. We study lighting patterns. And this is how we use lighting patterns. So we borrow a lot of ideas from other industries. We study underglow lighting. Here's an example of underglow lighting. And here's how we use underglow lighting. Something as silly as a mouse pad, we've actually, and it's a very good selling product. It's very unique to Razer. We draw inspiration from customizable lighting. And then here's some examples of our customizable lighting. So you can see how we're using, ideas from other industries. We study what's going on in the world. We don't just sit in a room by ourselves and say, this is what it's going to be. We draw inspiration from customer lighting, and we know how important customizable lighting is. And so Razer became a pretty advanced, company when it came to customizable lighting. Here's another example of our lighting patterns. Here's another one. Then we also look at special finishes. We do a lot of special finishes. Again, we draw a lot of inspiration from the automobile industry because they use a ton of special finishes. The yellow mouse was actually a licensed product that we did, a whole bunch of licensed products for not Tron, what was a Transformer movie. That was the Bumblebee mouse. the movie studio came to us and said, we want some mice and keyboards that look just like, you know, the bots in the movie. And we said, sure, we can do it, and we've done a ton of that. We study a lot of interactive feedback. This is like a lot of the future of technology. Now, where do we get our ideas from? Okay, so these 1,300 creatives are contributing the concepts every day and every month. So we have what's called an internal innovation, and employees can win cash, prizes, trips, and if their idea is patentable, their name goes on the patent. So as you can imagine, we receive hundreds of internal ideas from every month, and many of the best ideas come from our engineering teams. So mechanical and electrical engineering are steps for success. It's actually more than 5. Our success for steps, when it comes to sharing and explaining your projects to end users, engineers need to have top-tier marketing skills. Excuse me, water break. So the engineers can better market their ideas by getting to know their customers. Engineers can keep concepts simple and focus on key advantages of their ideas, proposals, and projects. When customers are interested in your work and can easily understand it, they're more likely to invest their money. Continuing on the success to steps, it is crucial to continuously sharpen your mental skills and mental habits. Developing more productive mental habits improves thought processes and helps you come up with better solutions faster. And one example of innovative mental habit is the inversion technique, or approaching the problems from the opposite direction. So you say, oh, where do I start to build? Instead of saying, where do I start to build a solar-powered keyboard, you might say, well, what would the end design look like? We actually have a kind of an icebreaker concept that we pass around every one of our technology groups, where we say, come up with your worst idea. This is how you start. So here's the challenge. You're going to do a solar-powered keyboard, right? What's your worst idea for that solar-powered? Worst idea you can come up with. Then we say, write it down on a Post-it note, and then pass your idea on to the person to the right. And then that person to the right can then build on it, make it worse, make it better, or pass it on, do nothing and pass it on. It's an icebreaker. It's a way we help people break the ice, okay? So engineering is all about problem solving. By nature, most of us are intuitive, so to think analytically takes practice. Consider different problem-solving methods like experimentation or testing of a different tool before beginning the development of a project. Okay. So Razor Products involves complex tasks in a fast-paced environment. There's a lot of pressure we place on our engineers. So it's important that they pay attention to detail. Top engineers aren't afraid to be precise in their designs. They look for the best solutions to achieve for the absolute best results. And our best engineers move with interactive industry rather than stay stagnant. So they study the industries. They don't just sit around and work and work and work. On their own time or whenever they feel like it, they study and see what other people are doing. It's important to push yourself in these areas, constantly inventing the time and keeping up with industry news. The more knowledge you have, the more expertise you can offer. And one last secret to success: take a risk. If you're not failing, you're not innovating. Take time to get away from your assignment and play. recharge your creative batteries with other interests. You know, a lot of times when my first job as a copywriter for an advertising agency, when I didn't have any idea how to start on a project, I was in Los Angeles. I would go down to used bookstores and walk around and thrift shops and old museums and places like that, just so I could get ideas. And those ideas might lead to a stepping stone for another idea to solve my problem. Now, we only hire gamers. We actually have game rooms in every office. We have mandatory 2-hour lunches where we require all of our employees, now not just gamers, not just engineers, but people who are working in, accounting. They have to game 1 hour a day. Now, so what we believe is that everybody needs to live the life. They need to experience it. And of course, they game on really nice gear. So let's say you graduate and you get a job. Okay, what should you be looking for in a company? A company like Razor, maybe not Razor itself, but another company. Well, you want the opportunity to be able to supply internal innovation, to be able to have your ideas accepted. You want the freedom to express those ideas, even if they fail. You want to work in a team environment. It's so much better than having to work alone. You want a voice in the design and engineering of every new and existing product. You want a job that allows a lot of ample time for problem solving. And if you're self-employed, innovation is definitely a must. So move into creativity here now. Elon Musk said, failure is an option here. He's talking about his own company. If things are not failing, you are not innovating. Steve Jobs said something similar. He said, innovation distinguishes between a leader and a follower. Now, somebody I've never heard of, me, I said creative ideas flourish best in a company which preserves their spirit of fun. I'm not going to read my quote, but it's pretty silly. So there's my quote. If you can read it, fine. If not, fine. I can tell you what it says later. You can read it? Okay. I'll say what it says. Creativity is like washing a pig. It's messy. It has no rules. No clear beginning, no middle, no end. It's kind of a pain in the ass. And when you're done, you're not sure if the pig is really clean or even why you were washing a pig in the first place. That's my idea of creativity. By the way, that slogan is on the outside of our office in San Francisco, with my name after. Okay, so that's the first half of my little talk. Okay, that's the engineering side. I don't know. I guess I'm on time. So my second half is like my idea of artificial intelligence. I've written 2 books on artificial intelligence. I'm working on a third. Now they're fiction, so they're not real. These are my interpretation, my ideas. So in my free time, I've authored I'm working on number 11, so I've actually authored 10. Most of them are within the category of tech fiction. So what I do is I take cutting edge technology from whatever sciences and I can, and I imagine how they're going to come out in the future, how they're going to affect, you, me, our children, our grandchildren, the world, what's left of it. And so I try to take cutting edge technology and from almost all the sciences, and then I love to make up shit. So I do it for creative satisfaction, but most importantly, I do it to enhance my aging brain. It's good. It's good for the brain. Okay? That's important to remember. I do it to enhance my aging brain. Okay, so the first two books I've written take place in the year 2101. And my key character is a guy is a humanoid by the name of Andre. He's a domestic worker, artificial intelligent domestic worker. He is the main character, and I see, or the reader would see, everything through his point of view. The book, the trilogy, the book number 3 is set about 45 years later, and I will call it my dream trilogy, and it's called Deadly Dreams. And that's kind of a mock-up of what the cover might look like. Now, I'm going to give you a disclaimer here because my characters are fictional. They're fictional beings, and my attempt at AI science falls into what I call the plausible impossible. It couldn't happen. It could happen, but it's just shit I've made up. So, so the main character, Andre, is nothing more than what I see as the future of life on this planet, which may eventually be overrun by intelligent machines. That's one fear. It's one outcome. I don't want to spoil the book for you, so I'm not going to tell you how it comes out. But on the road of tech fiction, authors dream and imagine what social conflicts and ultimate culture clash awaits humanity. And while I love the challenge of looking into the future, I do not claim it as real science. So, Andre is my lead character in the trilogy. He is an advanced humanoid, a machine capable of thinking and feeling. You, as the creators of our artificial intelligence, have decided in your own intimate wisdom to make Andre look like he's another human. Maybe not a good idea, maybe a bad idea. We'll see. So, and with the slides that follow, on the slides that follow, I express the views from his point of view. So these are actually, don't blame me for what Andre says. Okay, so Andre has a kind of a development over the 3 books. He starts out as a kind of an obedient worker. He's a domestic worker. He seems to be very satisfied just to fit in and accepts his role of caretaker of old people. He's kind of a mechanized slave. The people that can afford like a domestic worker are very affluent humans who are kind of at this point in 2101, are the unchallenged masters. They're kind of the 1%. They can afford to have an AI, worker full time to buy one. In Robot Dreams, Andre now has moved along. So a few years later, and he now starts to have doubts about his existence, particularly in the areas of self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and some of his independence thoughts begin to emerge. Humans are growing distrustful of artificial intelligence, and there is a deep fear and increasing resentment towards advanced cyber beings. Kind of hard to read, sorry. The book number 3, Deadly Dreams, takes place, as I mentioned, in 2145 when Andre joins a rogue of droid union. He abandons his loyalty to humans and forms an intelligent AI intelligent collective. Now, to counter this, the humans form alliances with paramilitary groups and defend their human rights to their dying race. In book number 3, again, there's a new race of superhumans that appears as a class of improved humans created by rogue Chinese scientists from children in the 2020s. They actually experiment on children's. Now, if you think this is crazy, it's actually being done today. There are Chinese scientists that are experimenting on children today to build a race of superhumans. Okay, I know it's crazy, but it's actually happening. So like I said before, I take crazy science and I project it into the future. These superhumans are created using eugenics, euthenics, genetic engineering, nanotechnology, brain computing interfacing to accelerate the process of the human evolution. It's pretty sick, but it's happening. So anyway, in book 3, there's really, I think, 6 different categories of humans, of beings. There are the androids like Andre, there's superhumans, there are very wealthy cyberhumans because they're essentially have now improved themselves so they can compete with the androids. So they are scientifically enhanced humans with all kinds of new skin, new brains, new bodies, new everything to keep them alive, to keep them living forever. And it's a crazy world, but there they are. Then there are the unimproved humans living in squalor, the few that are left. Then there are cyber criminals, and there are early generation, like second generation, like shiny metallic robots. Okay? Not terribly intelligent, but they're still out there. These are all battling to save a dying planet by finding and unmasking the shadowy world ruler called the Courageous Leader. Okay, I haven't gotten very far in that book, but that's kind of it for now. Okay, so first book set in 2101, Andrew speaks 32 languages. He actually speaks every language that's still left on the planet, which happens to be 32. He has been programmed to, oh, by the way, Spanish is still one of the 32 languages left on Earth in 2101 being spoken, so it's okay. Don't fear. Andre has developed a high level of awareness and knows from his personal experience in working with other computers is that human computers are not perfect. In many cases, they're misguided and they're capable of many, many errors. Units like Andre have the capacity to grow vast neurons within their synthetic brains, and Andre becomes a student of AI history dating back to the beginning, the logic theorist back in 1956. That was the first AI. Are anybody familiar with a logic theorist? It's pretty ancient, 1956. Of course, I was old in 1956 too. So anyway. Okay, so his artificial brain, every time a neuron fires in Andre's synthetic brain, it sends an electrical chemical message through thousands of neurons at speeds of 300 kilometers per second. He's got 150 billion neurons in his synthetic cortex and approximately 90 trillion, synthetic synapses. His brain is massively interconnected through non-carbon modeling. So this is how I see his brain. This is how I see the creators of today. They're sitting and tinkering with what I call second generation